Title: The Monster Storm That Was 1,380 Miles Wide. In 1979, the planet cooked up a storm that dwarfed almost everything in recorded history. A typhoon swelled to an unbelievable size, 1,180 miles wide, big enough to stretch from Denmark all the way to Spain. It created air pressure so low, meteorologists once thought it was just a myth. This is the story of Super Typhoon Tip, the largest and most intense monster storm our world has ever officially produced. And it makes you wonder, could a storm this massive ever happen again? It all started in early October 1979, in the warm, sprawling waters of the western Pacific. A massive, active monsoon trough, a perfect breeding ground for storms, was bubbling with activity, stretching from the Philippines to the Marshall Islands. In this chaotic nursery, several low-pressure systems were fighting for energy, but one little disturbance near the island of Pohnpei was barely hanging on. This storm, which would later be named Tip, was getting smothered by its sibling. Just to its northwest, a stronger system, Tropical Storm Roger, was hogging all the atmospheric fuel, stopping Tip from getting its act together. For days, the little storm just drifted around in a confused, meandering loop. Reconnaissance planes flying into the storm couldn't even find its center, and satellites were placing it almost 40 miles away from its real location. On October 5th, it was finally labeled Tropical Depression 23, but it was a weak, disorganized mess. For most storms, that would have been the end of it. But then, on October 8th, everything changed. Tropical Storm Roger suddenly veered north and fizzled out, no longer sucking the life out of Tip. It was like a huge weight was lifted. All the warm, moist air that had been feeding Roger was suddenly pulled into Tip's circulation. What was once a roadblock was now a supercharger. At the same time, a channel of air high up in the atmosphere opened, acting as a perfect exhaust vent for the storm's engine. It could finally breathe. On October 9th, it was officially upgraded to Typhoon Tip. It had survived its chaotic birth. Now, with endless warm water for fuel and perfect conditions, the stage was set for it to become a monster. As it passed south of Guam, it dumped over 9 inches of rain but gave little hint of the record-shattering transformation that was coming. The U.S. Air Force reconnaissance squadrons stationed there, however, were about to get a front-row seat to the most extreme storm in history. They flew a staggering 40 missions into Tip, making it one of the most closely observed cyclones ever, and what they saw would rewrite the record books. Between October 9th and 11th, something unbelievable happened. The central pressure inside Typhoon Tip plummeted. This rapid intensification was a sign of a storm building terrifying power. On October 11th, it was officially declared a super typhoon, but it was the size that was truly stunning. As it got stronger, its circulation blew up to a record-breaking diameter of 2,220 kilometers, or 1,280 miles. This wasn't just a storm, it was a weather system on a continental scale. At its largest, Tip was nearly half the size of the United States. If you centered its eye over New York City, its outer bands would be lashing Dallas. Then came October 12th. A reconnaissance plane flew into the heart of the beast, descending through the stadium-like eye wall into the calm, clear eye. The crew dropped a sensor package to measure the pressure below. The reading it sent back was almost too low to be believed, 870 millibars. It was, and still is, the lowest sea level pressure ever recorded on Earth. Lower pressure means faster winds, and Tips were furious. Sustained wind speeds hit an astonishing 305 kilometers per hour, or 190 miles per hour. Inside the eye, which was just 9.3 miles wide, the temperature was a strangely warm 86 degrees Fahrenheit. This wasn't just a storm, it was a perfectly formed heat engine of almost unimaginable power. One of the pilots on those missions described the view as both spectacular and awesome. Words that felt totally inadequate for what he was seeing. Even after reaching its peak, the storm stayed massive for 5 more days. It was a monster that just refused to shrink. This storm was so immense that it bent the rules of what meteorologists thought was possible. It holds the records for both the largest size and greatest intensity at the same time, a combination that has never been seen since. While the records still stand, routine reconnaissance flights in the Pacific ended in 1987. This means we've only measured modern storms by satellite, leaving some to wonder if another storm has quietly surpassed Tip's intensity. But its colossal size remains undisputed. The story of Typhoon Tip is a wild reminder of our planet's raw power. If you think diving into incredible stories from history and science is as fascinating as I do, take a second to subscribe to the channel. We explore the events that show the extremes of our world, and you won't want to miss what we have coming up next. Now back to the monster storm. For days this behemoth churned across the open Pacific. Luckily its path kept it away from any major landmasses while it was at its most powerful. A storm with the power and size of Tip hitting a populated coastline at full strength is a scenario that's almost too terrifying to imagine. As it moved toward Japan, it began to weaken and shrink. On October 19th, Typhoon Tip finally made landfall on the main Japanese island of Honshu. By then, it was much weaker, but it was still a powerful typhoon, with winds around 80 miles per hour. Because it was so enormous, its impact was still widespread. The storm dumped torrential rain, causing over 600 mudslides in the mountains, and massive flooding. More than 22,000 homes were flooded, and at least 11,000 people were left homeless. Offshore, the storm was deadly. A Chinese freighter broke in half, though its crew was fortunately rescued. In total, the storm caused 99 fatalities. Across Japan, the floods and mudslides were responsible for 42 deaths, while 44 fishermen were lost at sea. In a tragic, indirect incident, the heavy rain caused a flood-retaining wall to fail at Camp Fuji, a U.S. Marine Corps training facility. This led to a fire that broke out in the barracks, killing 13 Marines and injuring 68 others. Considering its record-breaking power, a final death toll under 100 seems surprisingly low. But this shows a crucial fact about cyclones. Intensity and devastation aren't the same thing. Tip spent most of its life over the empty ocean. Other less intense storms have been far deadlier simply because they hit vulnerable populated areas. Super Typhoon Haiyan, in 2013 for example, killed over 6,300 people in the Philippines. Surprisingly, the name Tip wasn't retired. It was actually reused 3 more times before finally being removed from the lists in 1989. Perhaps because its legacy wasn't one of mass casualties, but of meteorological superlatives, it remains the ultimate benchmark for storm size and intensity, a ghost from the past that haunts the pages of weather history books. Typhoon Tip was a perfect storm of circumstances. A unique brawl between weather systems allowed it to form, and a perfect environment allowed it to grow to a scale that hasn't been officially seen since. Its records for size and pressure still stand today, a testament to a truly mind-boggling event. But what about the future? In a world with warming oceans and a more volatile atmosphere, could a storm like this form again? The scary part is, scientists think climate change is loading the dice for future storms. Warmer sea surface temperatures provide more fuel, and climate models project that we'll see a higher percentage of intense Category 4 and 5 storms. We're already seeing storms that intensify with shocking speed, which is consistent with a warming climate. While the exact freak conditions that created Tip might be hard to replicate, the basic ingredients for monster storms are becoming more and more common. We may not see a storm 1,380 miles wide again in our lifetime. Or, we might see something that makes even Tip look small. For better or worse, we're running a global experiment, and we'll have to wait and see how it turns out.